The gas station sat at the edge of nowhere, a cracked concrete island between the desert and the highway, where truckers refueled and drifters disappeared into the heat shimmer. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, casting long shadows across the pump islands and turning the dust-covered asphalt into something that looked like the surface of another planet. It was 6:47 a.m. When Mason Wrench Caldwell pulled his Harley up to pump 3, the engine's rumble fading into the morning silence like a prayer left unfinished. He'd been riding since midnight, 41 years old, scarred knuckles that told stories he rarely spoke about, a back that remembered too many bad roads, and one tour in Kandahar that still woke him at 3 a.m. some nights with the sound of mortars echoing in his skull. He wore his leather vest like armor, patches from 15 years with the Iron Sons, a brotherhood forged not by blood, but by loyalty, loss, and the unspoken promise that no one rides alone. The vest was worn in places, the leather soft from years of wind and weather, but the patches were clean, honored, sacred. He'd left Phoenix in darkness, needing the road the way some men need religion. Sometimes the only answer to the noise in your head was the sound of an engine and the feeling of asphalt disappearing beneath your wheels. He'd planned to ride until sunrise, maybe grab breakfast somewhere in New Mexico, keep moving until the restlessness settled. He was pulling off his gloves, flexing fingers stiff from gripping the handlebars for 6 straight hours, when he heard it. A small voice, fragile, desperate. The kind of sound that cuts through everything else and makes your blood run cold. "Mister?" Wrench turned slowly, instinct already telling him something was wrong. The parking lot was empty except for a semi-truck idling near the diesel pumps and a beat-up Toyota that looked like it had been abandoned weeks ago. A little girl stood near the air pump, maybe 6 years old, possibly younger, barefoot on concrete already warm from the rising sun. She wore a faded pink dress 2 sizes too big, the kind you'd find in a donation bin, with a tear along the hem and dirt stains that suggested she'd been outside for a long time. Her brown hair was tangled, matted in places, her cheeks streaked with dried tears that had left salt-white trails through the dust on her face, but it was her eyes that stopped him cold. They weren't the eyes of a child. They were the eyes of someone who'd already seen too much, lived through things no child should know existed. Eyes that held fear, yes, but also something deeper, a bone-deep exhaustion that came from carrying a weight too heavy for small shoulders. In her trembling hands, she held a ceramic piggy bank shaped like a smiling unicorn. It was chipped and faded, the kind of cheap trinket you'd win at a county fair. But she held it like it contained everything in the world that mattered. "Please," she whispered, taking a hesitant step forward. Her voice cracked. "Save my mommy." Wrench felt something shift in his chest. That old instinct from his military days. The one that separated soldiers from civilians. The ability to recognize when someone was in real, immediate danger. Before he could respond, she thrust the piggy bank toward him with both hands. It was heavy. He could hear coins shifting inside, probably $20, maybe $30 worth. A child's entire fortune, collected penny by penny, quarter by quarter, probably over years. Birthday money, tooth fairy money, every small treasure she'd ever been given. "Sweetheart, where's your mom?" His voice came out softer than he expected, the rough edges worn smooth by something he couldn't name. Fear, maybe, or recognition of something he'd seen before in other places, other wars. The girl's lip quivered. She was trying so hard to be brave. You could see it in the way she held her shoulders back, the way she blinked rapidly to keep from crying. But she was 6 years old and alone and terrified, and brave only lasts so long. "They took her," she said, the words tumbling out now. "The bad men. She told me to run. She told me to hide. She told me to find someone strong." Her small fingers gripped his leather vest, leaving dusty prints on the worn leather. "Are you strong?" Wrench knelt down slowly, making himself eye level with her. He'd learned this in Kandahar, working with local kids. You don't tower over frightened children. You meet them where they are. What's your name? Emma. She said it so quietly he almost didn't hear it. Emma, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Can you do that? She nodded, clutching the piggy bank tighter. Take your time, Wrench said gently. Start from the beginning. If you've ever felt the weight of a promise you couldn't break, you already know where this story is going. But some promises cost more than others. Some promises change everything. Emma's words came in fragments, broken pieces of a nightmare she didn't fully understand, but had learned to survive. Wrench listened without interrupting, his face neutral, but his mind already processing, categorizing, planning. Her mother's name was Sarah Kemp, 29 years old, single mom, worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads. Morning shift at a diner called Ruby's on Highway 19, night shift cleaning office buildings for a company she called the Logistics Place. They lived in a trailer park 7 miles east, near the old rail yard where freight trains screamed past at midnight, and nobody asked questions about who came, who went, or what sounds they heard through thin metal walls. Life had been hard, Emma explained in the simple, matter-of-fact way children describe poverty when it's all they've ever known. Sometimes the power got turned off, sometimes there wasn't much food. But her mommy always made sure Emma had something to eat, even if Sarah went to bed hungry. Emma knew this because she'd woken up one night and seen her mother crying in the kitchen, staring at an empty refrigerator. And the next morning her mother had smiled and said she wasn't hungry, just Emma, eat the cereal, baby. Mommy already had breakfast. 3 days ago, everything changed. Sarah had come home from her night shift, shaking so hard she could barely turn the key in the lock. Emma remembered the smell, fear, sweat, something chemical and wrong that made her stomach hurt. Her mother had locked every door, pulled every curtain, checked every window twice. She'd whispered into her phone for hours, pacing back and forth in the tiny living room, crying, saying words Emma didn't understand. Evidence, recording, they'll kill me. I don't know who to trust. Emma had pressed her ear to her bedroom door, listening to fragments. I'm telling you, they're paying off county officials. Millions of dollars. I have proof. No, I can't go to the local police. Half of them are on the payroll. I need federal. Please, you have to believe me. The next morning, Sarah had sat Emma down on the couch. Her hands were still shaking. She'd tried to smile, but it came out wrong, twisted by fear into something that looked more like a grimace. Baby, we're going to play the quiet game today, Sarah had said, brushing Emma's hair back from her face. Remember the quiet game. You hide under your bed and you don't make a sound no matter what you hear. Can you do that for Mommy? Emma had played the quiet game before. It meant bad things were happening. It meant strange men came to the door asking for rent money they didn't have, or the landlord showed up drunk and angry, or Sarah's ex-boyfriend, Emma's father, though he'd never acted like one, came around demanding money for his drug habit. But this felt different. This felt worse. Mommy, I'm scared. I know, baby, I know, but you're so brave. You're the bravest girl I know. Sarah had pressed something into Emma's hand, a piece of paper with a phone number written on it. If something happens, if Mommy doesn't come get you, you call this number. You tell them Sarah Kemp sent you. You tell them you need help. Okay? What's going to happen? Nothing, baby. Nothing. Mommy's just being careful. But Emma had seen her mother's eyes. She was lying. 2 hours later, Emma was under her bed, her favorite stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest, when she heard the vehicles pull up outside. Not one car, multiple. Heavy engines, doors slamming, boots on gravel. Then the pounding on the door. Sarah Kemp, open up! Emma had been hiding under her bed. Her mother had taught her that game months ago, made it sound fun, like hide and seek. But it wasn't a game, and it was never fun. The space under the bed was cramped and dark and smelled like dust and old shoes, and Emma had learned to stay perfectly still, barely breathing, until her mother came and whispered, "All clear, baby, you can come out now." But this time, her mother didn't come. Through the crack beneath the bed frame, Emma saw boots, black boots, multiple pairs, heard her mother begging, her voice high and desperate in a way Emma had never heard before. "I don't have it anymore," Sarah lied. Emma knew it was a lie because she'd seen her mother hide something in the bedroom the night before, under the mattress, wrapped in a plastic bag. "I gave it to the police. It's already with them. You're too late." One of the men laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made Emma's skin crawl, that made her want to cry out for her mother, but she couldn't. She had to stay quiet. That was the game. Stay quiet, no matter what. "You think we're stupid?" the man said. His voice was cold, flat. The voice of someone who'd done terrible things so many times they didn't even feel them anymore. "We know you didn't go to the police. We know exactly where you went, who you called, and why they didn't help you. Nobody's coming to save you, Sarah. Please, I have a daughter. She's 6 years old. Please." "Then you should have thought about that before you stuck your nose where it didn't belong." They dragged her out. Emma heard furniture crashing, heard her mother screaming, heard her voice getting fainter as they pulled her toward the door. She heard the van door slam, heard gravel crunching under tires, heard the engines fade into the distance, then silence. Emma had waited under the bed, counting in her head the way her mother had taught her. Count to 100. Then count again. Make sure they're really gone. She counted 3 times before she crawled out. The trailer was destroyed. Furniture overturned, drawers pulled out and dumped. They'd been looking for something, the thing her mother had hidden. Emma went to the bedroom. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely lift the mattress, but she did. The plastic bag was still there. She didn't open it. She didn't know what was inside, but she knew it was important, knew it was why they'd taken her mother. She'd stood there for a long moment, a 6-year-old girl alone in a ransacked trailer, trying to decide what to do. She couldn't call the police. Her mother had said not to trust them. She couldn't call her grandmother. Grandma had died last year, and that's why they had the piggy bank, because Grandma had given it to Emma for her 5th birthday and said, "You save your pennies, sweet girl. You never know when you might need them." She couldn't call her father. He'd been in jail for 2 years, and honestly, Emma was glad because he'd been mean when he wasn't in jail. So she'd done what her mother told her to do. She'd filled her backpack with crackers, a juice box, a change of clothes, and the piggy bank. She'd walked through the trailer park, past the burned-out cars and the houses with broken windows, walked along the highway as the sun came up, her feet blistering in shoes that were too small, walked until she saw the motorcycles at the gas station. She'd heard stories about bikers. Some people said they were scary, but her mother had once told her something different. They'd been driving past a group of bikers on the highway, and Emma had asked if they were bad guys. Her mother had smiled and said, "No, baby, most of them are just regular people who like to ride motorcycles. And you know what? Some of them are the best people you'll ever meet. They take care of each other. They keep their promises. If you ever need help and you can't find Mommy, you find someone like that. You find someone who looks strong and ask them for help." So that's what Emma did. She walked up to the man with the scarred hands and the leather vest covered in patches, and she gave him everything she had. Now, kneeling in front of this strange man who smelled like leather and gasoline and something else, safety maybe, or at least the possibility of it, Emma waited. Wrench pulled out his phone and took a photo of her. Not for anything sinister, but because missing children needed faces, and faces needed witnesses, and he was already thinking 3 steps ahead about what came next. "Emma, I'm going to make you a promise," he said, his voice steady and calm. "I'm going to find your mom, and I'm going to bring her home. Do you understand?" "You promise?" He looked at the piggy bank still clutched in her small hands. He didn't take it. Instead, he placed his hand over hers, his palm covering both the bank and her fingers. "I promise, on my life, I promise." Emma's lip trembled. Then she did something that broke Wrench's heart. She straightened up, wiped her tears with the back of her hand, and nodded like a soldier receiving orders. "Okay, thank you." 6 years old and already learning that sometimes you have to trust strangers because there's no one else left. Wrench carried Emma inside the gas station. She was light, too light for a 6-year-old, and he wondered when she'd last had a proper meal. The clerk behind the counter, a tired woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain and a name tag that said Dottie, took one look at the girl and understood immediately. She'd lived in this county long enough to recognize the signs. "Oh, honey," Dottie said, coming around the counter. She brought out a blanket from the employee break room, a bottle of water, a pack of cookies from the shelf. "When did you eat last?" Emma thought about it. "Yesterday morning. Maybe. Maybe. I had some crackers in my backpack, but I gave most of them to a dog I saw. He looked hungry." Wrench and Dottie exchanged a look. Dottie knelt down, her knees creaking, and wrapped the blanket around Emma's shoulders. "You sit right here, sweetheart. You eat these cookies and drink this water. You're safe now." "I'm calling the police," Dottie said quietly to Wrench, standing up and moving toward the phone behind the counter. Wrench shook his head. "Not yet. She's a child. She needs her mother. And if whoever took Sarah finds out the cops are involved, before we know what we're dealing with, Sarah's already dead." He kept his voice low, but firm. "Emma said her mother didn't trust the local police, said they're on someone's payroll. Until we know who we can trust, we keep this quiet." Dottie hesitated, her hand hovering over the phone. She looked at Emma, sitting on the stool behind the counter, small and vulnerable, and trusting in a way that made Dottie's heart hurt. She'd raised 3 daughters of her own. She knew what it looked like when a child was in real danger. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Make a call of my own." Wrench stepped outside into the parking lot. The sun was higher now, heat already radiating off the pavement in waves. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts, stopping at a name he hadn't called in 3 months. Reaper. The phone rang twice before a gravelly voice answered. "It's 6 in the morning, Wrench. This better be good." Marcus Reaper Hollis had been the Iron Sun's road captain for 12 years. Ex-Marine, ex-boxer, ex-husband, ex-everything except loyal. He'd served 2 tours in Iraq, came home with a Purple Heart and nightmares that lasted 5 years before he found the Brotherhood. Found people who understood that some things you can't talk about, can only ride away from. If Wrench called, Reaper answered. No questions, no hesitation. "I need the crew," Wrench said. There was a pause. In the background, Wrench heard the sound of a coffee maker, a TV playing the morning news. Reaper's apartment, probably. Then the TV went silent. "What's the play?" "Missing woman, possible abduction. Her 6-year-old daughter just gave me her piggy bank and begged me to save her mum." Silence. Longer this time. Then, "Where are you?" "Miller's Gas, Route 19, about 30 miles west of Prescott." "Give me 90 minutes. Reaper." "Wrench, you know the code. No brother rides alone, especially not for something like this. 90 minutes. We'll be there." The line went dead. Wrench stood there for a moment, phone in hand, staring at the desert stretching out in all directions. He thought about Sarah Kemp, somewhere out there, terrified, probably hurt, definitely wondering if anyone was coming. He thought about Emma inside, 6 years old and holding onto a piggy bank like it could save the world. He thought about the promise he'd made. He didn't make promises lightly. Never had. In Afghanistan, he'd seen what happened when promises got broken. Families destroyed, trust shattered, good intentions turning into body bags. So when he gave his word, he kept it. Period. He walked back inside. Emma was sitting on the stool behind the counter, clutching the blanket. Dottie had given her a coloring book from the rack, probably figuring it would help distract her. But Emma wasn't coloring. She was staring at the door, like she expected her mother to walk through it any second. "Emma, some friends of mine are coming." Wrench said, crouching down beside her. "They're going to help us find your mom." "Are they strong too?" Wrench almost smiled. "Yeah, kid, they're strong. As strong as you. Stronger." Emma considered this, then nodded. "Okay." She went back to staring at the door, waiting, hoping. Wrench stood up and caught Dottie's eye. She jerked her head toward the back room, and he followed. "What happens when your friends get here?" she asked, keeping her voice low. "You can't just go riding off into the desert like some kind of vigilante posse. Watch me. Wrench, her mother is in danger. Every hour we waste is an hour closer to that woman ending up in a shallow grave somewhere. The police will ask questions, they'll file reports, they'll start an investigation that might go somewhere in 3 days, maybe a week. This girl doesn't have 3 days. And what if you're wrong? What if the police aren't corrupt? What if you're just—" "I'm not wrong." Wrench pulled out his phone and showed her the photo Emma had described. Sarah Kemp, from Emma's description, a woman with brown hair and tired eyes who worked 2 jobs and loved her daughter more than life itself. This woman stuck her nose into something dangerous, something big enough that people are willing to kill to keep it quiet. Until I know who's involved and how deep it goes, I'm not trusting anyone in uniform." Dottie sighed. She'd lived in Arizona for 32 years. She'd seen corruption, seen sheriff's deputies looking the other way when the right people asked, seen small-town politics turn ugly and violent. "You be careful," she said finally, "and you bring that woman home to her daughter." "That's the plan." They walked back out front. Emma looked up hopefully, but her face fell when she saw it was just them. "Not yet, sweetheart," Dottie said gently. "Soon." Emma nodded and went back to waiting. Outside, in the distance, Wrench heard it before he saw it, the low rumble of engines growing louder by the second. He walked to the door and looked out across the desert highway. They were coming. They arrived like thunder rolling across the desert, like the wrath of God, made manifest in chrome and leather, and the primal roar of American engines, pushing 1,200 cc's of pure defiance against a world that had forgotten what loyalty meant. Wrench heard them first, a low rumble that grew into a roar that shook the windows of the gas station. He stepped outside and saw them cresting the hill, a convoy of motorcycles stretching back a quarter-mile, chrome flashing in the morning sun like dragon scales, leather and steel and purpose moving in perfect formation. Reaper led the pack on a matte black Road King, his silhouette unmistakable even at a distance. Behind him came faces Wrench recognized: Axe, Hammer, Preacher, Nomad, Ghost, Tiny, who was anything but, Chains, Dagger, and 72 others. Every member of the Iron Sons within 2 hours' ride, plus patches from allied clubs who'd heard the call and came anyway, because this was what they did. This was what they were. 97 bikers, 97 engines, 97 souls who understood that some things mattered more than sleep, schedules, safety, or sense. They parked in formation, a wall of machines that turned the gas station into something between a fortress and a war council. The sound of engines cutting off one by one was like a symphony ending, leaving behind a ringing silence that felt sacred. Reaper dismounted first. He was 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with a salt and pepper beard and eyes that had seen too much, but still managed to care. He wore his leather vest like a general wore his uniform, with pride, with weight, with the knowledge that it meant something. He walked straight to Wrench. No handshake, just a nod. That was all they needed. "Show me the girl." Inside, Emma's eyes went wide. She'd never seen so many people who looked like they'd walked out of her storybooks. The ones with dragons and warriors and knights who kept promises even when it hurt. The gas station that had felt empty and lonely 5 minutes ago now felt crowded, protected, safe. Dottie stood behind the counter, arms crossed, looking at the assembled bikers with a mix of apprehension and approval. Reaper scanned the room, taking in everything in 3 seconds flat. The way Emma held the blanket, the way she clutched the piggy bank, the way her eyes tracked movement like someone who'd learned to watch for danger. He'd seen kids like this in Iraq, kids who'd grown up too fast, kids who'd learned that the world was sharp and unforgiving. He knelt down in front of her, just like Wrench had. "Emma, my name's Marcus. Most people call me Reaper. That's what my friends call me because, well, it's a long story, but you can call me whatever you want." Emma studied him. "Why do they call you Reaper?" Reaper smiled. It was a good question. "Because when I was in the Marines, I was really good at my job, and my job was keeping my friends safe. That name stuck. Now I'm still keeping people safe, just in different ways. Are you here to save my mommy?" "That's exactly why we're here. All of us." He gestured to the bikers filling the gas station. "You see all these people? Every single one of them dropped everything to come help. Some of them were at work, some were sleeping, some had plans. But when they heard a little girl needed help finding her mom, they came. Because that's what we do." Emma looked at Wrench, then back at Reaper, then at the crowd of leather-clad strangers filling the parking lot. Something shifted in her face. Not hope, not yet, because hope was a fragile thing that could break you if you held it wrong. But maybe the possibility of hope, maybe the first whisper of belief that things could be okay. She held out the piggy bank with both hands. "I have money," she said. "It's not much, but you can have it all. Please." Reaper's jaw tightened. He looked at Wrench, and something passed between them. Recognition of how completely unfair the world was, that a 6-year-old girl was offering her life savings to strangers because she had no one else to turn to. Reaper didn't take the bank. Instead, he pulled something from his pocket, a silver coin, worn smooth by years of carrying. It was a challenge coin from his Marine unit, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. On one side, an eagle and anchor. On the other, the words, "First to fight." "Tell you what, Emma, you keep your money. That's yours. You earned it, you saved it, it belongs to you. But I'm going to give you this." He placed the coin in her palm. "It's a promise coin. As long as you hold it, you know we're keeping our promise. And when we bring your mom back, you give it back to me. Deal?" Emma looked at the coin. It was heavy, important. She could feel it. "Deal," she whispered. Outside, Wrench gathered the crew. They formed a circle in the parking lot, 97 men and women who'd dropped everything to be here. Some were mechanics, some were veterans, some were ex-cons who'd found redemption on 2 wheels. But all of them understood the code. Wrench laid it out plain and simple. Woman named Sarah Kemp, 29, single mom, worked as a night cleaner at a logistics company. 3 days ago, she stumbled onto something, corruption, payoffs, something big. They took her. We don't know who they are yet, but we know they're dangerous. We know they're connected, and we know they can't afford to let her talk. "Local cops?" Axe asked. He was the biggest man there, 6'5", arms like bridge cables, but he spoke quietly, carefully. "Possibly compromised. Emma, that's the daughter, and says her mother didn't trust them. Until we know more, we operate independently." "What's the play?" Hammer asked. He was the club's enforcer, a man with scarred knuckles and a tactical mind. Former Army Ranger. 3 tours in Afghanistan. He'd seen action in places that didn't officially exist. Wrench pulled out his phone and showed them the trailer park on Google Maps. "First, we check her residence. See what we can find. Evidence, clues. Anything that tells us who we're dealing with." Then, Preacher asked. He was 52, still carried a Bible in his saddlebag, but he'd been a chaplain in Desert Storm and knew how to handle himself when prayers weren't enough. "Then we find her, and we bring her home." It was 9:14 a.m. in Miller's Corner, Arizona. The temperature was climbing past 85 degrees, heading toward a high of 103. Somewhere in the desert, a mother waited for a miracle she didn't know was coming. And 97 engines were about to become that miracle. The Iron Sons didn't ride in formation toward the trailer park. That would have drawn too much attention, and attention was the last thing they needed right now. Instead, they split into 3 groups: reconnaissance, perimeter, and entry. Wrench, Reaper, Axe, and Nomad took point. The rest spread out in a loose perimeter, watching the roads, monitoring police scanners, making sure they'd have warning if anyone official decided to show up. The trailer park was exactly what Emma had described. 12 rusted units arranged in a horseshoe around a cracked concrete pad that might have been a basketball court once, but was now just weeds growing through fissures. Chain-link fences sagged under the weight of desert wind and neglect. A burned-out Ford pickup sat on cinder blocks near the entrance, spray-painted with gang tags that were themselves faded and weathered. The kind of place where people came to disappear, and sometimes succeeded. 3 of the trailers looked abandoned, windows broken, doors hanging open. The rest showed signs of life, but quiet life, the kind where people kept their heads down and didn't ask questions about who their neighbors were or what sounds they heard at night. Sarah's trailer was number 7, marked by a crooked metal number nailed to the door frame. The door hung half open, moving slightly in the breeze. Wrench signaled for silence. They approached on foot, boots crunching gravel that sounded too loud in the still morning air. Reaper moved left, covering the side window. Axe, despite his size, moved with surprising grace to the rear, checking the back exit. Nomad stayed on the perimeter, eyes scanning for movement, threats, witnesses. Wrench pushed the door open with his boot, staying to the side in case someone inside had other ideas. Nothing. Just silence and the smell of stale air and something else. Violence, recent violence, the scent memory of fear. The interior confirmed Emma's story. The trailer had been ransacked, methodically, professionally. This wasn't random vandalism or a robbery. This was a search. Furniture overturned but not destroyed. Drawers emptied but stacked neatly to the side. Cushions slashed open with precision cuts. Someone had been looking for something specific, and they'd taken their time doing it. The living room was small, a couch that had seen better days, a television on a plastic stand, a coffee table covered in old magazines. On the walls, water stains formed abstract patterns. The carpet was threadbare, worn through in places to the plywood underneath. But it was the wall above the kitchenette table that stopped Wrench cold. Taped there was a collage of photographs. Emma at different ages, different moments. First day of kindergarten, wearing a dress too big and holding a backpack almost as large as she was. Birthday party, maybe her 5th, with a homemade cake and candles. At a park on a swing, mid-flight laughing. At the beach, building a sandcastle, tongue stuck out in concentration. Halloween, dressed as a princess with a cardboard crown. Christmas morning holding a stuffed rabbit that Wrench recognized from Emma's backpack. And in every photo, Sarah was there. Young, tired, circles under her eyes that spoke of double shifts and single parenthood, but smiling. Always smiling when the camera pointed at her daughter. Smiling like Emma was the only thing in the world worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth staying alive for. Beneath the photos, written in marker directly on the wall in handwriting that was rushed but deliberate, Emma, if you're reading this, Mommy loves you more than anything in the world. Find someone strong, find someone good. Don't trust the police. Don't go to the trailer park office. Find help somewhere else. I love you forever and always. Mommy. Wrench pulled out his phone and photographed everything. The photos, the message, the whole wall. Evidence. Proof that Sarah had known she was in danger. Proof that she'd tried to protect her daughter even as they came for her. Wrench! Reaper's voice came from the bedroom, low and urgent. You need to see this. The bedroom was even smaller than the living room. Just a mattress on the floor, a lamp without a shade, a cardboard box serving as a nightstand. Clothes were scattered everywhere, pulled from a plastic tote that had been dumped in the search. On the floor, a handful of toys, dollar store treasures, worn books, a stuffed bear, missing one eye. But tucked beneath the mattress, partially pulled out where someone had looked but not taken, was a manila envelope. Wrench picked it up carefully. Inside, a flash drive, 3 photographs, and a handwritten note on lined paper torn from a spiral notebook. The photographs showed men in suits standing outside a warehouse. Wrench didn't recognize faces, but he recognized type, Corporate, well-fed, the kind of men who made decisions from air-conditioned offices while other people did the dirty work. In one photo, one of the men was handing something to a uniformed police officer. In another, the same group stood beside a black SUV with its trunk open, though the angle didn't show what was inside. In the third, they were inside the warehouse, standing near shipping containers marked with Chinese characters. The note in Sarah's handwriting read, "Proof of payoffs, county officials, sheriff's department, maybe state level. Wire transfers run through shell companies based in Delaware and Nevada. Halcyon Logistics is moving more than legitimate freight. Drugs, weapons, people, I don't know, but I know they're paying millions to keep it quiet. I know they're using county vehicles for transport. I know Sheriff Anderson takes a cut. If anything happens to me, this goes public. This is my insurance." SK. Below that, a list of names. 7 of them. 3 county commissioners, 2 sheriff's deputies, 1 DA, 1 state representative. Wrench felt cold despite the heat. "How much you want to bet that flash drive has bank records?" Reaper said quietly. "All of it." Wrench pocketed both the drive and the note. She wasn't just a witness. She had leverage. She had proof. Which means they can't afford to let her talk. Axe had appeared in the doorway, filling it completely. Which means they're either trying to flip her or they're going to kill her. Probably the second one, given how this place looks. "We need to move fast," Wrench said. "Every hour that passes." He didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Nomad stuck his head in. "Got movement, trailer at the end, someone's watching us." They moved to the window. 3 trailers down, a curtain flickered. Someone was home. Someone was curious. "Local?" Reaper asked. "Only one way to find out." And the trailer belonged to a woman in her 70s named Rita Sanchez. She answered the door with a baseball bat in one hand and suspicion in her eyes that didn't fully fade even when she saw they weren't cops. "You friends of Sarah's?" she asked, not lowering the bat. "No, ma'am," Wrench said respectfully, "but her daughter asked us to help find her." Rita's expression shifted. "Emma? That sweet girl? Where is she?" "Safe, fed, scared, but not hurt." "Good." Rita lowered the bat slightly. "Sarah's a good woman, works too hard, loves that baby more than life. When those men took her..." She shook her head. "I called the sheriff's office. You know what they told me? They said Sarah probably went on a bender. Said she had a history of drug problems. That was a lie. That girl never touched drugs in her life, barely even drank, but that's what they told me." "Did you see what happened?" Reaper asked. "Saw everything. I don't sleep much anymore, so I was up watching my programs when they showed up. 3 vehicles, black SUVs, government plates, or at least they looked like it. 6 men, maybe 7, professional, organized. They went in fast. Came out 5 minutes later dragging Sarah. She was fighting, screaming for Emma, begging them to let her go. They zip-tied her hands and threw her in the back of the middle vehicle." "Did you get a plate number?" Rita smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I got all 3. She disappeared inside and came back with a piece of paper. 3 license plate numbers, written in neat cursive. Times, physical descriptions of the men, makes and models of the vehicles. "I was a court reporter for 35 years, Rita said. "I remember details." Wrench took the paper like it was made of gold. "Thank you." "You bring her home," Rita said. "You bring that girl home to her baby." "That's the plan." They walked back to where the rest of the crew waited. Wrench held up the flash drive and the piece of paper. "We've got leverage and we've got leads. Time to see where they take us." Back at the gas station, they set up a makeshift command center. Hammer had brought his laptop, military-grade encryption, off-grid internet via satellite uplink, the kind of tech you didn't ask too many questions about how he'd acquired. He plugged in the flash drive while the rest of the crew gathered around. The files loaded slowly. Then Hammer started scrolling and everyone went quiet. bank records, wire transfers, corporate documents, shell company registrations, 3 years' worth of financial records showing millions of dollars moving through accounts that technically belonged to legitimate businesses but were obviously fronts. Halcyon Logistics appeared again and again, payments labeled as consulting fees and equipment rental that didn't match any actual services rendered. Money flowing in from overseas accounts, Hong Kong, Panama, Cyprus. Money flowing out to personal accounts belonging to the names Sarah had listed. "This is federal-level corruption," Hammer said quietly. "This isn't just some local cops taking kickbacks. This goes deep." "Which means Sarah is a massive liability," Wrench said. "Which means we're running out of time." Hammer cross-referenced the license plates Rita had provided. All 3 vehicles were registered to Halcyon Logistics. All 3 had been reported as in service on the morning Sarah disappeared. "They didn't even try to hide it," Axe said. "They're that confident they won't get caught." "Confidence or corruption?" Preacher asked. "Both." Hammer pulled up satellite imagery of Halcyon Logistics. The compound was massive, 30 acres of warehouses, loading docks, container storage, and what looked like a private rail spur, surrounded by chain-link fence topped with razor wire, security cameras on every corner, guard shack at the entrance, but one building stood out. Warehouse 14 isolated at the back of the compound, away from the main loading areas, separate security, separate entrance. "That's it," Wrench said. "That's where she is." By noon, the Iron Sons had eyes on the building from 3 different vantage points. Wrench watched through binoculars from a ridge half a mile away, lying flat on sun-hot rock, sweat soaking through his shirt. The warehouse was exactly what the satellite images had shown, a massive corrugated steel structure, 2 stories tall, windowless except for a row of skylights on the roof. The kind of building designed for one purpose: hide what's inside. 3 black SUVs sat in the lot, the same ones Rita had described. Guards patrolled the perimeter, not rent-a-cops in cheap uniforms, but private security. Ex-military by the way they moved, by the way they carried their weapons, by the tactical gear they wore in 100-degree heat, without complaint. Wrench counted 6 guards on exterior patrol. Probably more inside. "She's in there," he said into his radio. Reaper's voice crackled back. "You sure?" "No, but it's our best shot, and we're burning daylight." Axe's voice. "Entry points?" "1 main entrance, front of the building. Loading dock in back, but it's chained. Skylights on the roof, but they're 30 feet up and probably alarmed." "So we go through the front door," Hammer said. "Not exactly." Wrench pulled back from the ridge and rejoined the crew at their rally point, an abandoned gas station 3 miles away, the kind of place that had died when the interstate bypass got built and everyone forgot it existed. "We need a diversion," Wrench said. "Something big enough to pull security away from that building. Something they can't ignore." Preacher spoke up. He'd been quiet until now, but when he talked, people listened. "What about a parade?" Everyone looked at him. "A parade?" Reaper said. Preacher smiled. 97 motorcycles rolling past that warehouse in a slow, deafening procession. Engines roaring, pipes echoing, a spectacle impossible to ignore. While every guard is watching us, a small team slips in through the back. Wrench considered it. It was crazy, reckless, exactly the kind of thing that might work. "They'll call the cops," Axe pointed out. "Let them," Hammer said. "By the time the cops show up, we'll be gone. Either we find Sarah or we don't. Either way, we'll be moving too fast for anyone to stop us." "It's risky," Nomad said. "Everything worth doing is risky," Reaper replied. Wrench looked around at the assembled crew. 97 people who'd dropped everything to help a woman they'd never met. To keep a promise to a 6-year-old girl who'd trusted them with everything she had. "We do this right, we do this fast, and we do it together," Wrench said. "No cowboy shit, no unnecessary risks. We get in, we get Sarah, we get out. Clear?" 97 voices. Clear. At 2:17 p.m., 97 motorcycles rolled past Warehouse 14 in a slow, deafening parade that sounded like the end of the world and the beginning of something better all at once. They came in formation, 3 columns, engines synchronized, pipes roaring in harmony. They rode at exactly 15 miles per hour, slow enough to be noticed, fast enough to keep moving. The sound was apocalyptic. The sound was beautiful. The sound was a promise kept and a warning delivered. The guards came running immediately. Radios crackled. The front gate opened as 2 SUVs roared out to intercept, security personnel shouting into phones, trying to figure out what the hell was happening. And while every eye watched the bikers, 3 figures slipped through the back fence with bolt cutters that made the chain link part like tissue paper. Wrench, Reaper, Nomad. They moved through shadows, past shipping containers stacked like building blocks, past forklifts and pallets and crates marked with symbols Wrench didn't recognize. The warehouse interior smelled like diesel and metal and something else. Fear, maybe, or just the industrial scent of a place where bad things happened behind closed doors. They moved fast but careful, communication reduced to hand signals, each man covering angles, watching corners, moving like they'd trained together for years, because in a sense they had, not in formal training, but in the brotherhood, in the understanding that your life depended on the people beside you. They heard her before they saw her. A woman's voice, muffled but desperate, coming from somewhere deeper in the building. "Please, I have a daughter. She's 6 years old. She needs me. Please." Wrench's blood went cold. They moved toward the sound, faster now, caution warring with urgency. They found her in a storage office, a windowless room tucked in the back corner, walls lined with filing cabinets, a single metal desk, a chair bolted to the floor. Sarah Kemp sat in that chair, hands zip-tied behind her back, ankles bound to the chair legs, a bruise darkening her left cheek, her lip split and swollen, but alive, conscious, still fighting. 2 guards stood nearby, distracted by the commotion outside, voices raised in confusion about the motorcycle parade that had appeared out of nowhere. Reaper didn't hesitate. He moved like smoke, silent, invisible until he wasn't. The first guard never saw him coming. Reaper's arm locked around the man's throat, applying pressure to the carotid arteries, cutting off blood flow to the brain without damaging the windpipe. The guard struggled for maybe 3 seconds before going limp. Nomad took the second guard differently. A sweep to the legs, dropping him hard, following with a knee to the solar plexus that knocked the wind out, and the fight too. Zip ties secured both guards within 15 seconds. Sarah stared at them, fear and confusion and desperate hope warring in her eyes. "Who?" Wrench cut her restraints with a folding knife pulled from his belt. "Emma sent us." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Her whole body started shaking. "Is she safe?" "She's safe. Fed. Waiting for you." Wrench helped her stand, her legs nearly buckled. "Can you walk?" "I'll crawl if I have to." "Walking's better. We need to move. Now." They exited through the back, moving fast. Behind them, they could hear shouts, the sound of security personnel realizing something was wrong. The motorcycle parade was already peeling away, regrouping 2 miles east at the predetermined rally point. They reached the fence, slipped through, crossed open ground at a run. 3 motorcycles waited in the shadows, Wrench's Harley, Reaper's Road King, Nomad's Softail. Sarah climbed on behind Wrench, arms wrapping tight around his waist. "Hold on," he said. They rode. If this story reminded you why loyalty and courage still matter in a world that's forgotten both, hit that like button. Some things are worth fighting for, some promises are worth keeping, and some rides change everything. They rode toward Miller's gas station as the sun dipped low, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson and purple that look like hope feels when it's been gone too long and finally comes back. Sarah sat on the back of Wrench's Harley, arms wrapped tight around his waist, shaking not from fear anymore, but from relief, so overwhelming it felt like breaking apart and being put back together at the same time. She'd been prepared to die in that warehouse, had made peace with it in the dark hours, had said goodbye to Emma in her head, had prayed that her daughter would find someone good, someone who would tell her that her mother had loved her more than life itself. She hadn't prayed for rescue. She'd learned a long time ago that prayers didn't always get answered, but here she was, riding through the desert at sunset, alive, free, going home. "Thank you," she kept whispering, though she knew Wrench probably couldn't hear her over the wind and the engine. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." They arrived at the gas station as twilight settled. The parking lot was full again. 97 motorcycles parked in perfect formation, 97 people waiting to see how the story ended. Emma was waiting outside, still clutching Reaper's coin in one hand and her piggy bank in the other. When she saw her mother, she ran. Sarah dropped to her knees on concrete still warm from the day's heat and caught her daughter, held her like she'd never let go. Like gravity itself couldn't be stronger than the love between them. "Mummy, I found someone strong," Emma whispered into her mother's shoulder. "I found lots of someone strong." Sarah was crying too hard to answer. She just held her daughter and rocked and thanked a God she'd stopped believing in years ago, but who maybe, possibly, had been listening after all. The bikers watched in silence. Some of them had kids. Some of them had lost kids. All of them understood that this moment right here was why they rode. Not for the freedom of the open road, though that mattered. Not for the brotherhood, though that was sacred. But for moments like this. For being the someone strong when someone needed them to be. Wrench knelt down beside Sarah and Emma, moving slowly so as not to startle them. "Sarah, my name's Wrench. This is Reaper. We need to talk about what happens next." Sarah looked up, her face streaked with tears and desert dust. "They'll come looking for me. We know. Which is why you're not staying here." Over the next hour they worked out a plan. Hammer had already contacted federal authorities. Not local, not state, but federal. FBI, specifically. The kind of people who investigated corruption at this level, who had resources and jurisdiction and, most importantly, weren't on anyone's payroll. The flash drive with the financial records was already on its way to a field office in Phoenix via encrypted upload. Hammer had contacts, people he'd served with, who'd gone into law enforcement after their service, people who still remembered what honor meant. Within 3 hours, federal agents would arrive. Within 6, warrants would be issued. Within 12, the entire operation at Halcyon Logistics would be shut down, and everyone involved would be facing charges that carried decades of prison time. But Sarah and Emma couldn't wait 12 hours. They couldn't even wait 3. "We have a safe house," Reaper said. 3 states away, off the grid. People we trust. You stay there until this blows over, until the arrests happen, until it's safe to surface. "I don't have money for—" "You don't need money. You need safety. We'll handle the rest." Sarah looked at her daughter, then at the assembled bikers, then back at Reaper. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us," Wrench answered. "Your daughter gave me her piggy bank and asked me to save you. She trusted me with everything she had. How could I do anything less than everything I have?" Sarah's lip trembled. "I don't know how to repay." "You don't repay it. You pass it on. Someday, when you can, when you're safe and settled and Emma's grown, you help someone else who needs it. That's how this works." Emma tugged on Reaper's sleeve. He knelt down, and she pressed the silver coin back into his palm. "You kept your promise," she said solemnly. "Thank you." Reaper closed his fingers around the coin, then opened them again. "Tell you what, Emma, you keep this a little longer. Keep it until you're all the way safe. Then when you don't need it anymore, you pass it to someone else who does. Deal?" Emma considered this with the seriousness of someone 3 times her age. Then she nodded. "Deal." By 8:47 p.m., Sarah and Emma were in a SUV with tinted windows, driven by 2 Iron Sons members named Chains and Dagger, who'd volunteered for escort duty. They'd drive through the night, switching drivers every 4 hours, taking back roads and avoiding major highways, until they reached a cabin in Montana where a retired Marine Corps gunnery sergeant named Helen Wu ran a bed and breakfast that occasionally housed people who needed to disappear for a while. The federal agents arrived at 9:15 p.m., exactly when Hammer said they would. Special Agent Victoria Reyes, FBI Organized Crime Division, stepped out of a black sedan, wearing a suit that looked uncomfortable in the desert heat and an expression that suggested she'd seen too many cases like this and was tired of seeing more. But when Wrench handed her copies of everything they'd found, the flash drive, the photographs, Rita Sanchez's witness statement, the license plate numbers, and his own detailed account of the rescue, something shifted in her face. "You shouldn't have gone in there," she said. "You could have compromised the investigation. You could have gotten yourselves killed." "Could have," Wrench agreed. "Didn't. You could have gotten Sarah Kemp killed." "Could have. Didn't. In fact, we saved her life because she'd be dead by now if we'd waited for official channels." Agent Reyes stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed. "Off the record. Thank you. On the record, I'm going to need statements from everyone involved." "You'll get them. But the woman and her daughter are off limits. They're safe, they're protected, and they'll surface when your case is solid enough that they won't be in danger." "I can't agree to—" "You don't have to agree. That's how it's going to be." Wrench's voice was calm, but absolutely firm. "You want to arrest me for obstruction? Go ahead. But that woman and her kid have been through enough. They're not sitting in protective custody in some hotel room while you build your case. They're with people who will actually keep them safe." Agent Reyes looked at the 97 bikers still assembled in the gas station parking lot. She did the math. She knew she couldn't arrest all of them. Knew that even trying would create more problems than it solved. "Fine," she said, "but when I need them to testify, they show up." "They will. You have my word." "Your word." She said it like she wasn't sure what that was worth. "My word. And we keep our promises." Something in the way he said it made Agent Reyes believe him. 3 days later, the arrests began. County Commissioner Robert Halstead was taken into custody at his home at 6 a.m., still in his bathrobe, his wife screaming about lawyers and mistakes, while federal agents read him his rights. Sheriff's Deputy Mark Anderson tried to run, made it 12 miles before his vehicle was stopped by a federal roadblock. He surrendered without incident, but the look on his face suggested he knew his life was over. District Attorney Patricia Chen was arrested at her office, led out in handcuffs past cameras and reporters who shouted questions she didn't answer. By the end of the week, all 7 names on Sarah's list were in federal custody. By the end of the month, Halcyon Logistics was shut down completely, its assets seized, its operations exposed as a front for drug trafficking that had moved over $200 million worth of heroin and fentanyl through the Southwest over 3 years. The story made national headlines. Corruption ring exposed in Arizona. FBI arrests 7 in multi-million-dollar drug operation. Single mother's bravery brings down corrupt officials. But the headlines never mentioned Emma. Never mentioned the piggy bank, never mentioned the 97 bikers who dropped everything to keep a promise to a 6-year-old girl. That was fine with them. They didn't ride for recognition. They rode for each other. Thank you for riding with us through this story. If these tales of loyalty, courage, and second chances mean something to you, if you believe that promises still matter, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things, that family is something you choose, not something you're born into, then subscribe and join us for the next ride, because no one should ever have to ride alone, because somewhere right now, someone needs help, and somewhere right now, there are people ready to answer that call. Hit that subscribe button, like this video. Share it with someone who needs to remember that good people still exist, because they do, and they're riding,